Hello, I've decided to come out today because on the day I'm recording this, the sun is still shining, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder how much more sunshine we will have during this summer and autumn that we're going into. And of course, this week the news of the growth again in the virus hasn't been good, has it? I think we all hope that crises bring out the best in people, and in many ways they do. And there's been loads of COVID heroes during these last few months, people who have put themselves out to help and support other people. But crises don't always bring people together in the way we might like. I was talking to my son actually, and he lives in London in an apartment block, and he was telling me that where he lives at the start of the pandemic, some of the residents set up a WhatsApp group so that they could inform one another of things and maybe even support one another. But then other people fell out with them, and so they started a new WhatsApp group. So there were then two. And that made me smile, really. But I think it's typical of the way we often are. My football team, as many of you know, is Queen's Park Rangers. Now, they're not the biggest club in the world, but on social media, there is a QPR fans page. There's a QPR Pride of London page. There's a QPR Independent R's page. And then perhaps most amusingly, there's a QPR Optimistic Supporters group. Now, the reason why they started that was that they were annoyed that everyone else, every time they lost, thought the world was coming to an end. And so they decided that they would set up one where you're meant to be more positive. But doesn't that just show you 4 different groups for one small club and not really coming together? Now, churches can't be arrogant about that. There's always people in churches falling out and then starting new churches. And that's been the case for years and years. And I suppose the question we have to ask is, does the fact that there are different groups, here we're talking about churches, does that give more choice, or does that just reflect more division? I'll let you have a think about that. Some of my favourite names of churches, though, are the Primitive Methodists. That I think is a great name for a church. So there wasn't just Methodists, they split, and one group became Primitive Methodists because they were going back to basics. And then come on you Baptists, because there's strict and particular Baptists. So some people thought that the other Baptists weren't strict enough and weren't particular enough. So they started another group. And then my favourite name for a type of church is the Countess of Huntingdon's Connection. You can look that up yourself, but there are some churches that are a part of that movement, or certainly have been as well. Now, Jesus prayed that his disciples would be one. But as we've seen by thinking of that WhatsApp group and that block of flats, the different QPR groups that there are, and then the different churches, that's always a challenge, because we're all individuals, and guess what? Most of us think we're right. In Psalm 139, the psalmist says, "Behold how pleasant and how good it is when brothers, and presumably sisters, live together in unity. Behold how pleasant and how good it is." I think the cynic in me would also say, behold how unusual it is when people dwell in unity. And as I say, it could be that by having different expressions, there's something for everyone. That could be a positive thing. But I do think that God wants us to get on, and God wants us to communicate, even if there are other groups. God wants us to speak well of them and to be positive towards them. And it's like that outside church as well, with our neighbours, with our families. Perhaps that's not always easy. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." And in these tense times, perhaps we all ought to think, can we be peacemakers? Can we help bring people together? Jean-Paul Sartre, the French philosopher, said, "Hell is other people." But I don't think it should be. I think other people should be those who we support and we support us. So perhaps have a think this week. Are there people that you need to build a stronger and a better relationship with? Hope you have a good week. Don't let the COVID fear get to you. Let's be very careful, but let's live our lives. And see you soon. Bye-bye.